listeners. This is Samantha.
And Cheyanne.
And you're watching our videocast, My Modern Romance, Digital Days. There are many articles on gender and compliments, but not many concerning sexuality.
So, how does gender and sexuality affect compliments given to each other? Samantha and I decided that we were going to look at popular dating apps and come to a conclusion about this question.
So I believe LGBT women will give compliments based on appearance and possession. I believe straight men will compliment appearance only. LGBT men will compliment men on appearance, while straight women will compliment performance shown in a profile pic. For example, an award shown or a nice job.
And I believe that compliments given by straight females, lesbians, and gay males will all be very similar in that they will compliment personalities, articles of clothing, or other things that are in their profile pictures. And then I think straight men will stand alone in their compliments, mainly being about bodies and the way that girls look, so their appearance.
An article that really inspired us to go about this experiment was Janie Reese Miller's Compliments Revisited, Contemporary Compliments and Gender. She answers the question, do topics of compliments differ according to gender? Her answer was, in unstructured settings, approximately 80% of all compliments concern appearance or performance. However, the preferred topic in unstructured settings between two women is appearance, 74.1% of all female-to-female compliments in unstructured settings. In contrast, the preferred topic for men is performance. In unstructured settings, 63.6% of male-to-male compliments are on performance, contrasted with the 13.6% devoted to appearance. But how does this change with sexuality?
Okay, so just some definitions that we need to get down before we get into the dirty nitty-gritties here. Tinder app, a very popular location-based social search app. It facilitates communication between dating, but it's also branched out to more services like friends or just hanging out. But you have to be mutually interested in order for this app to work. So you swipe left or swipe right. Swiping left indicates you are not interested in the person. Swiping right indicates that you are interested. And so you wait until you match and then you're allowed to talk to each other. Similarly, we have the Her app. It is made for LGBTQ women by LGBTQ women. It's for dating, making friends, reading content, finding out about local events, or just chatting. It's less popular than Tinder, but it's also something that needs to be considered in this study because we are looking at sexuality.
And something to clarify, on Her, you do not have to, or you don't match automatically. You like somebody and they're able to see that you like them right off the bat, whereas Tinder, you can't see if anybody liked you until you match.
Yeah, absolutely. And then lastly, we have the Grindr app, or like the deep dirty of the internet. It's a little terrifying being a part of it. But it's very, very similar to the Tinder app in that it is a location-based social app, but it's geared towards gay and bisexual men, and it's designed for them to help meet other men in their area. It's gotten a lot of bad rep in its history because well, first of all, its name is Grindr, which just kind of sounds rough. But
it has lived up to its name. It's very dirty.
Yeah, it tends to have more of a dirty attraction to it. But going for sexuality, we really wanted to include the lesbian as well as gay, so that's why we have Grindr in our search here.
So some methods we used. I used the Her app to match with women and Tinder to match with men. If I got a match, I always let the person message first to keep it genuine and looked for a compliment within the first conversation.
And I looked at my friend's Grindr because he's gay. I'm obviously not a gay man, so I looked at his messages. Luckily, he was nice enough to give me some insight.
And then we really got some insight from that one.
Yeah, we definitely got some insights. But so I recorded the messages that we had there, and then I also was trying to get some straight man to let me look at his Tinder. I asked several friends, but none of the straight men I asked would let me look at their Tinder messages, which was so concerning to me. But it makes a very glaring statement on our research that no straight man would let me see the messages they send to women.
Which is really interesting because they still send those messages to women, so somebody's seeing those, but they won't let you, a friend, see what they're doing. You know, it kind of makes us think, like, why? What's so bad about what they're sending? And why do they send it if they think it's bad enough to not show a friend?
Yeah, absolutely. Like, they send it anyway. They obviously feel some kind of guilt.
Well, I wonder if girls ever compliment men on Tinder. Like, for our experiment, we had to let the person message first, but I can't honestly say that I would have complimented or messaged a guy first unless I thought he was really cute or something.
Yeah, and on that subject, there were a lot of bios on Tinder of girls that would say, message me first. Like, they wanted to be messaged first. So, okay, so just some data that we got from our research. I'm going to go ahead and start with Grindr, which is basically gay Tinder. We went through this earlier. You swipe left, you swipe right. You both have to swipe right in order to talk to each other. So from Grindr, 33% of our matches resulted in messages. And of those, we got 26.6-ish compliments. So that was a large percent. You'd say about like almost a third of them turned into compliments, which is surprising to me. I really didn't think on Grindr that people would compliment each other that much. And then again, as I said before, on Tinder, compliments from girls to guys, I have a glaring 0% out of 0% out of 0 ever, because no guys would let me see their Tinder, which is fine. I think it makes a big statement in our research project that the guys don't want people to see, like, even though I was looking at girls talking to them, they don't want me to see what they were going to say to other girls.
Which makes me wonder, like, I'm not sure if I mentioned this before, but did girls compliment first at all? Because I know that I probably wouldn't.
Yeah, absolutely. So that was something. And because of that, I teamed up with Samantha to compile a Tinder research of guys to girls.
So we got about 200 matches total on Tinder, and about 40% of those people messaged first. And then 18% of those messages were compliments, which is pretty good. It's not as many as I thought, honestly. For some reason, I was expecting like every man to give us compliments, and that was their opening line. But a good majority of them were still pretty polite and just saying hey and some cheesy pickup lines. And on her, I got about 40 matches, and 50% of those messaged me first, and about 12% of those messages were compliments, all appearance-based. I will say on her, though, compared to Grindr, a lot of people on her messaged first and said something like, hey, how are you? How's your night going? I hope you're doing well. So the way that gay men and gay women interact on social dating sites, comparing those is very interesting.
Yeah, and like Samantha said, we broke down our compliments into categories: possessions, appearance, performance, technological, and other. And technological would be like emojis, GIFs, things like that.
Yeah, so on some of them, like especially on her, I got a couple emojis, and one of them, for example, was like the cat with the hard eyes. And then she did follow with another compliment, but I think we live in a very digital age, so I think that we should count those as compliments nowadays, at least over social media.
Yeah, definitely. So on Grindr, of those categories, absolutely none about possessions, performance, or technological, which was shocking. I thought we would have some technological on Grindr. But a majority of them were appearance and other, and by that I mean 50% was appearance and 50% was other. And then, like I said, on Tinder for girls to guys, we have nothing to show. But then on Tinder for guys to girls, of course, a majority of them were appearance. We had 19 of them being appearance. We had one about possessions, which was nice to have something in that category. None about performance, which I thought maybe at least one would comment on like what we're doing with our life, because on Tinder you can say, this is my job, this is where I work, right. And we got no compliments on what we do. Maybe I'm just not a cool person. Probably and my job's not cool.
I think that's true.
And then we got actually 11 technological, which was not shocking. I totally expected that to happen.
Right, and a lot of the guys on Tinder, you could tell they're trying not to be like so cliche. So they'd send things like, Cheyenne got a GIF that was a whale waving. It says, "Whale, hello there."
Yeah, they were really funny. I enjoyed a lot of the compliments I got. They made me laugh, and
Yeah.
I would send screenshots to Samantha. They were just really funny. Some of them were just like, oh god, cringy.
Yeah, cringeworthy.
But and then we had 5 on there that were others. So like silly rhymes that were supposed to be like pickup lines, stuff like that.
Yeah, one of the compliments that I got, I think I showed you this, Cheyenne, was just, I think it was one of the first compliments I got, but we're counting it as roses are red, violets are blue, I'd run through the hood just to get to you.
I think honestly some of these are so creative, and I'm really impressed with it. So overall, I was actually so shocked that a majority of the compliments we got were from Grindr, followed up by Tinder. I honestly expected Tinder to be the most like genuine compliments. Well, Grindr, I know they're kind of risque, but I really just expected Tinder to have the most. So I just feel like in Grindr, gay men, they compliment each other more than straight men to women.
And one thing about Grindr is that they don't always start off with like conversation at all. We got a lot of nude photos, a lot of like dick pics on Grindr. So we're wondering if that should be a technological compliment or if that's just something else entirely.
Yeah, and something I think is really interesting is that guys are more sexually driven. I don't want to be very general here, but scientifically, guys are more sexually driven. So I think if you put all these guys together on one app and they're all complimenting each other, I feel like they would get down to business like right away and be like tell each other what they want from each other.
Which again, compared to the Her app, is so different because you'd think like with the same gender, it would maybe be a little similar to Grindr, maybe have more compliments, but a lot of them were very caring about like how your day was going and like what kind of things you liked, and there's very little compliments in general.
Yeah, so Grindr and Her app are like on complete opposite ends of the spectrum, and we have Tinder here in the middle, which is
Right.
kind of like evening them out. Which, as we have discussed before, we don't have any data to show for the guys getting compliments, but everything that we have on Tinder for guys giving compliments to girls is kind of like you put our data from Grindr and Her together, and it equals Tinder. So really a lot of social conversations that we have in the world, based on dating and even on like apps, they're very sexually driven, and guy to guy, like that's going to be higher, girl to girl it's going to be lower, and when it's together the data shows that it has that nice even plane in between.
Yeah, and a lot of guys on Tinder, like, surprisingly to me, I've heard horror stories about Tinder, but nobody ever sent me or Cheyenne, like, an automatic dick pic, thank God. But we didn't, like, I don't know what to say. We didn't, it's in the middle, so I think a lot of the guys that were complimenting women didn't want to offend anybody right off the bat, which was surprising and very good.
Yeah, and also I think when you make a Grindr account, you know what you're signing up for.
Yeah, I think so too.
Yeah, and on Tinder, you don't necessarily expect one way or another. And Grindr is just a more crude, like, granted, we considered them compliments, but they were very crude compliments.
To us, though, so I'm wondering if anybody on Grindr that is expecting that, do they think it's crude, or, like, you know, if they want to be messaged that kind of stuff, they think it's awesome.
Yeah, are they flattered about it? But yeah, I just think it's so interesting, the drastic difference between lesbians and gays, and then heterosexual is somewhere in the middle right there.
Yeah, which kind of, it's, for, what was I going to say? I totally blanked. I keep doing that.
That's okay, I can cut it out.
Here, just pause it. Wait, I guess you can't.
Okay.
I don't know, keep talking. Maybe it'll come back.
I don't have anything else to say.
Me either, just stop it.
Okay.
So another thing is we tried to find social dating apps that were all on the same spectrum, all pretty similar. You had to match in the message and likes and everything. But I think we kind of found that, like, they're very similar, but at the same time, they have some differences. So, like, her is made for LGBTQ women, but not just for dating. It seems like they were also made for friends, and a lot of people on their profiles put, "I'm just looking for friends. I'm just looking for more LGBT friends in the area." Tinder was kind of both, I think. There was at least one guy that told me he's not necessarily looking for anything. He's kind of looking for friends as well, and if anything happens, it happens. And Grindr seemed to be more of like we said, you know what you're getting into, so they kind of know that they just want to hook up maybe, and the messages kind of prove that. So it again, Tinder is kind of like the middleman. It's very a mix between like the friend thing of her and like the hookup of Grindr, because if we're being honest, not all people on Tinder just want to be friends.
Absolutely. So in the future, I would like to see an equal amount of matches that happen on her and Grindr and Tinder, because we had an overwhelming combination of matches between Samantha and I, and on her and Grindr it was significantly less, like less than 25% of the amount of matches that we had on Tinder. So I would like that to be more evened out in the future. And also, I think having more conversations with people and making them go longer. So Samantha and I tried really hard to not have that long of conversations, but I think if you looked more into
Like, the more people got comfortable within the conversation, it seems like the more comfortable they were to compliment. There were at least a couple instances where we had a conversation a little bit about, like, hey, how are you? And then something like, oh, you're very pretty, by the way, or something. So I'm wondering if we could look a little further in and maybe message some of the people on Tinder back that we just got, like, hey, and then quit, would it be different?
Yeah, well, we would have gotten more compliments like that. Also, I feel like if you would have talked on Grindr to people, maybe you would have had a more normal conversation. It would have been less crude and more civilized.